The snow fell in thick, relentless sheets as Tanya Morrison stood outside the locked apartment door, her 5-year-old daughter Bella pressed against her side. Her hands trembled as she tried the key one more time, knowing it wouldn't work. The landlord had changed the locks that morning while she was at the food bank. Their belongings sat in 2 black garbage bags on the sidewalk, already dusted white with snow. "Mommy, I'm cold," Bella whispered, her small voice barely audible over the wind. Her purple coat, bought from a thrift store last winter, was too thin for this weather. Her brown eyes looked up at Tanya with complete trust, the kind of trust that made Tanya's chest ache with guilt. "I know, baby. I know." Tanya pulled Bella closer, trying to shield her from the wind with her own body. She wore a green jacket that had seen better days, and her fingers had gone numb 10 minutes ago. The shelter had been full when she called. Every shelter in the city was full. It was December 23rd, and the temperature had dropped to 15 degrees. Tanya had called everyone she could think of. Her cousin had stopped answering her calls 2 months ago. Her former co-workers couldn't help. The churches she contacted had no space left. She had $63 in her pocket. Enough for maybe 2 nights at the cheapest motel, but then what? She'd lost her job as a nursing assistant 3 months ago when Bella got sick and she missed too many days. The daycare wouldn't take Bella without payment up front. It had been a cascade of disasters, each one pushing her closer to this moment. "Mommy, can we go inside now?" Bella's teeth chattered. Tanya felt tears freeze on her cheeks. She couldn't tell her daughter that they had no inside to go to. She couldn't explain that she had failed at the most basic task of motherhood, keeping her child safe and warm. She picked up the 2 garbage bags, took Bella's hand and started walking. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. Maybe they could sit there out of the snow while she figured out what to do next. Her phone battery was at 12%. She had to save it for emergencies. The streets were nearly empty. Most people were home with their families preparing for Christmas. Tanya tried not to think about last Christmas, when they'd had their own apartment, when she'd scraped together enough money to buy Bella a used dollhouse. Bella had been so happy. She'd played with it every day. That dollhouse was probably in a dumpster now. They reached the bus stop, but it offered little shelter. The plastic walls did nothing against the wind. Tanya sat on the cold bench and pulled Bella onto her lap, wrapping both arms around her. "Tell me a story, Mommy," Bella said, her voice small. Tanya's throat tightened. Even now, even in this moment, her daughter asked for stories. "Once upon a time," she began, her voice cracking, "there was a little girl who was braver than anyone in the whole world." "Was it me?" Bella asked. "Yes, baby. It was you." Bella nestled against her chest. "What happened to the brave girl?" Tanya closed her eyes. She didn't know how this story ended. She didn't know if it ended well at all. They sat there for 20 minutes. Tanya watched cars pass, their headlights cutting through the snow. Families inside, warm and safe. She felt invisible. She felt like a ghost watching the living world continue without her. Then a black car slowed down. At first, Tanya thought it was going to pass like all the others. But it stopped completely, right in front of the bus stop. The window rolled down. Tanya's first instinct was fear. She pulled Bella closer. But the man who looked out at her didn't look threatening. He was middle-aged, with gray at his temples, wearing an expensive-looking coat. His face showed concern. "Are you all right?" he asked. Tanya wanted to lie. She wanted to say they were fine, that they were just waiting for a bus. But Bella was shivering so hard and Tanya was so tired of pretending. "We have nowhere to go," she whispered. The words came out before she could stop them. The truth, raw and terrible. The man's expression changed. Without a word, he opened his car door and stepped out into the snow. Have you ever felt completely alone in the world? Imagine being in Tanya's position with your child, in the freezing cold with nowhere to turn. If this story touches your heart, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps spread these stories of hope and reminds us all that kindness matters. The man stood in the snow, seemingly unbothered by the cold. Up close, Tanya could see he was tall, well-dressed in a charcoal gray suit under his black wool coat. His eyes were kind, crinkled at the corners like he smiled often. "My name is Richard Coleman," he said gently. "I was driving home when I saw you both sitting here. How long have you been outside?" "Not long," Tanya lied automatically, then stopped herself. What was the point of lying? "A few hours. We got evicted this morning." Richard's jaw tightened. He glanced at Bella, who was watching him with wide, cautious eyes. "Have you eaten?" Tanya shook her head. "Please," Richard said, his voice firm but gentle. "Let me help you. I can take you somewhere warm. A hotel." You and your daughter need to get out of this cold. Every instinct told Tanya to be cautious. She didn't know this man. She'd heard all the warnings about accepting help from strangers. But Bella was shivering against her chest, and Tanya's own body had started to go numb. If they stayed out here much longer, they could die. Why would you help us? Tanya asked, searching his face for hidden motives. Because you need help, Richard said simply. And because I can. That's enough, isn't it? Something in his tone, the straightforward honesty, made Tanya's resistance crumble. She nodded slowly. Richard smiled and opened the back door of his car. Come on. It's warm inside. Tanya stood on unsteady legs, Bella still in her arms, and walked to the car. The heat hit her face as she climbed inside, and it was so wonderful she almost cried. Richard loaded their 2 garbage bags into the trunk and got back in the driver's seat. There's a hotel about 10 minutes from here, he said, pulling back onto the road. The Riverside Inn. Do you know it? Tanya nodded. She'd walked past it once. It was one of the nice hotels, the kind with doormen and crystal chandeliers. Not the kind of place she could ever afford. I'll get you a room for tonight, Richard continued. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. First, let's get you both warm and fed. I can't pay you back, Tanya said quietly. Not right now. I'm not asking you to. The drive was quiet except for the heater blowing warm air. Bella had stopped shivering and was looking out the window at the lights. Tanya held her close, still half convinced this was a dream or a trap. The hotel was as beautiful as she remembered. Richard parked and came around to open their door. A doorman greeted them, and if he noticed their garbage bags and worn clothing, he didn't show it. Inside, the lobby glowed with soft light. A massive Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with gold and silver ornaments. Bella's eyes went wide. Richard spoke quietly with the woman at the front desk, who nodded and handed him a key card. He turned to Tanya. Room 412. There's a restaurant on the 2nd floor. Order whatever you want and put it on the room. Tanya's throat was too tight to speak. She managed a nod. I'm going to call my wife, Richard said. She'll want to help too. Is that all right? Yes, Tanya whispered. Thank you. Thank you so much. Richard smiled. You're welcome. Go get warm. I'll check on you in a bit. Tanya took Bella's hand and followed a bellhop to the elevator. The room was more beautiful than anywhere Tanya had ever stayed. 2 queen beds with white comforters, a flat-screen TV, a bathroom with marble counters. Bella ran to the window to look at the city lights below. Mommy, look, she breathed. Tanya set down the garbage bags and sank onto one of the beds. It was soft. So soft. She put her face in her hands and let herself cry, just for a moment. Relief poured through her in waves. Bella climbed onto the bed beside her. Don't cry, Mommy. We're safe now. Tanya pulled her daughter into her arms and held her tight. We are, baby. We really are. An hour later, after they'd both taken hot showers and changed into clean clothes from the garbage bags, there was a knock at the door. Tanya opened it to find Richard with a woman beside him. She was elegant, with long black hair and a warm smile. She wore a red sweater and jeans, carrying several shopping bags. This is my wife, Grace, Richard said. Grace stepped forward, her smile genuine. It's so nice to meet you. Richard told me what happened. I'm so sorry you've been through this. Thank you for helping us, Tanya said. I don't know how to repay you. Grace shook her head. You don't need to. That's not why we're doing this. She held up the shopping bags. I brought some clothes for you and your daughter. I wasn't sure of sizes, so I got a few options. Tanya stared at the bags. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, Grace said simply. May I come in? Tanya stepped aside and Grace entered with Richard following. Bella peeked out from behind Tanya's legs, curious. Hi there, Grace said softly, crouching down to Bella's level. What's your name? Bella, she whispered. That's a beautiful name. I brought you something. Grace pulled out a stuffed bear from one of the bags. Do you like bears? Bella's face lit up. She looked at Tanya for permission, and when Tanya nodded, she took the bear and hugged it tight. Thank you. Grace stood and turned to Tanya. Have you eaten? Not yet. We were about to order room service. Perfect. Let's order together and we can talk. They sat around the small table in the room. Richard called down to order food while Grace pulled out the clothes. There were sweaters, pants, warm socks, even a new winter coat for Bella in bright pink. How did you know her size? Tanya asked, amazed. I have a niece about her age, Grace explained. I took my best guess. The food arrived, more than Tanya and Bella could possibly eat. Pasta, soup, sandwiches, fruit, desserts. Bella ate with enthusiasm, and Tanya found her own appetite returning. As they ate, Tanya told them her story. How she'd been working as a nursing assistant, how Bella had gotten sick with pneumonia and needed her mother home, how the missed days had cost her the job. How she tried to find new work but couldn't afford daycare. How the bills had piled up until she couldn't pay rent. How her family had distanced themselves, unable or unwilling to help. Richard and Grace listened without judgment, their faces full of compassion. I used to be good at my job, Tanya said, her voice breaking. I used to be able to take care of us. I don't know how everything fell apart so fast. It's not your fault, Grace said firmly. The system failed you. You did everything you could. Tomorrow, Richard said, we'll figure out next steps. But tonight you both rest. You're safe here. After they left, Tanya tucked Bella into bed. Her daughter fell asleep almost immediately, the stuffed bear clutched in her arms, a small smile on her face. Tanya sat on the other bed and looked around the room. For the first time in months she felt something like hope. Morning light filtered through the hotel curtains. Tanya woke slowly, confused for a moment about where she was. Then she remembered. The snow. The bus stop. Richard Coleman. Bella was still asleep, her face peaceful. Tanya got up quietly and looked out the window. The city stretched below, covered in fresh snow that sparkled in the sunlight. It looked almost magical. There was a knock at the door. Tanya checked the peephole and saw Grace standing outside with coffee and pastries. Good morning, Grace said cheerfully when Tanya opened the door. I thought you might like breakfast. You're too kind, Tanya said, accepting the bag. The smell of fresh coffee made her mouth water. Is Bella awake? Not yet. She's exhausted. Grace nodded. Let her sleep. Richard and I would like to talk with you when you're ready. No rush. They sat at the small table while Bella continued sleeping. Tanya sipped the coffee, which was the best she'd had in months. Tanya, Grace began, her tone gentle, Richard and I talked last night. We want to help you get back on your feet. Really help, not just a hotel room for a few days. Tanya's heart started beating faster. What do you mean? Richard runs a foundation that supports healthcare initiatives in the community. We have a position open for someone to coordinate community outreach programs. The pay isn't huge, but it's steady. Health benefits included. If you're interested, the job is yours. Tanya stared at her. You barely know me. We know enough, Grace said. You're a mother trying to protect her child. You worked in healthcare. You're responsible and caring. That's what we need. But I lost my last job. Because you had to take care of your sick daughter. That's not a failure, Tanya. That's being a good mother. Grace reached across the table and squeezed Tanya's hand. You deserve a chance. Will you take it? Tears spilled down Tanya's cheeks. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Grace smiled. There's more. Richard owns several apartment buildings. One of them has a small unit available. 2 bedrooms, nothing fancy, but it's clean and safe. The rent would be affordable on your new salary. You could move in next week. Tanya couldn't speak. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed. All the fear, all the desperation from the night before poured out of her. Grace moved around the table and hugged her, letting her cry. It's okay, Grace murmured. You're going to be okay now. When Tanya finally composed herself, Bella was awake, watching them with worried eyes. Mommy? Tanya wiped her face and smiled. Happy tears, baby. These are happy tears. Later that morning, Richard arrived and drove them to see the apartment. It was in a neighborhood Tanya knew, not far from a good elementary school. The building was older but well-maintained, with a small playground in the courtyard. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. As Richard opened the door, Tanya held her breath. It was small but perfect. A living room with big windows that let in lots of light. A kitchen with updated appliances. 2 bedrooms, one that would be perfect for Bella. The walls were painted a soft cream color and the floors were clean. What do you think? Richard asked. It's wonderful, Tanya whispered. It's more than I hoped for. Bella ran from room to room, her excitement bubbling over. Mommy, I get my own room? You do, baby. Richard handed Tanya a key. It's yours if you want it. First month's rent is covered. You can move in whenever you're ready. Tanya took the key, her fingers trembling. I'll work hard. I promise. I won't let you down. I know you won't, Richard said. Welcome to your new home. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Grace took Tanya and Bella shopping for furniture and essentials. They bought beds, a small couch, kitchen supplies, towels, everything they needed. Grace insisted on paying for it all. You'll pay it forward someday, Grace said when Tanya protested. When you're stable and you see someone who needs help, you'll remember this and help them. That's how kindness works. They also stopped at a social services office where a woman named Patricia Brooks worked. She was a social worker connected to Richard's foundation, and she helped Tanya with paperwork to enroll Bella in the nearby elementary school. Patricia was a warm woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Bella will love Lincoln Elementary, she said. Great teachers, and they have a wonderful after-school program that's affordable. Can I start after Christmas break? Bella asked shyly. Absolutely, Patricia said. I'll make sure everything is ready for you. By evening, the apartment had been transformed. The furniture was delivered and set up. The beds were made with new sheets. The kitchen had food in the cabinets. Bella's room had a bookshelf with books Grace had bought, and a small desk for homework. Tanya stood in the living room looking around in disbelief. 24 hours ago, she'd been sitting in the snow with nowhere to go. Now she had a home. A job. Oh. Grace hugged her goodbye. Get some rest. You start work on Monday but take the next few days to settle in. Richard will pick you up Monday morning and show you the office. After they left, Tanya and Bella explored their new home together. Bella chattered happily about her new school, about the books in her room, about everything. At bedtime, Tanya tucked her into the new bed. Bella hugged her stuffed bear and smiled up at her mother. Mommy, are we going to be okay now? Tanya kissed her forehead. Yes, baby. We're going to be just fine. She went to her own room and sat on the bed. The window looked out over the courtyard, where snow covered the playground equipment. Christmas lights twinkled on some of the balconies. Tanya pulled out her phone and typed a text to Richard and Grace. Thank you for giving us a second chance. I will never forget your kindness. The response came quickly from Grace. You're part of our family now. Sleep well. Tanya set down her phone and lay back on the bed. For the first time in months, she felt safe. She felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be all right. Monday morning arrived bright and cold. Tanya woke early, nervous energy coursing through her. She dressed carefully in one of the outfits Grace had bought for her, a blue blouse and black pants. Professional but comfortable. Bella was excited too, though she wouldn't start school until after the holidays. Tanya had arranged for a neighbor in the building, a retired teacher named Mrs. Chin, to watch Bella during work hours until school started. Richard picked Tanya up at 8. The Coleman Foundation offices were in a modern building downtown, all glass and steel. Inside, the lobby was busy with people coming and going. We focus on 3 main areas, Richard explained as they rode the elevator up. Healthcare access for underserved communities, education programs, and emergency assistance for families in crisis. Like us, Tanya said quietly. Exactly like you. That's why I think you'll be perfect for this role. You understand what these families are going through. The office was open and bright with people working at desks and in conference rooms. Richard introduced Tanya to the team. Everyone was friendly and welcoming. Her supervisor was Dr. Rachel Kim, the hospital administrator. She was younger than Tanya expected, maybe late 30s, with a sharp intelligence in her eyes but a warm smile. Welcome to the team, Rachel said, shaking Tanya's hand. Richard told me about your background in nursing. That's going to be invaluable for this position. Rachel showed Tanya her desk and explained her responsibilities. Tanya would coordinate community health fairs, help connect families to medical resources, and assist with outreach programs in underserved neighborhoods. We want to bring healthcare to people who can't easily access it, Rachel explained. Free screenings, vaccination clinics, health education. You'll be the bridge between the community and our services. Tanya felt a spark of excitement. This was meaningful work. This was a chance to help people the way she'd been helped. The first week flew by. Tanya absorbed information like a sponge, taking detailed notes and asking questions. She met with community leaders, visited neighborhood centers, and started planning the foundation's first health fair of the new year. Richard checked in regularly, but he wasn't overbearing. He trusted her to do the work and offered guidance when she needed it. At home, Bella was thriving too. She'd become friends with Mrs. Chen's granddaughter, who visited often. The apartment felt more like home each day. Tanya bought a small Christmas tree, and she and Bella decorated it together with inexpensive ornaments. On Christmas Eve, there was a knock at the door. Tanya opened it to find Grace holding a wrapped box. "Merry Christmas," Grace said, stepping inside. "I know the holiday has been stressful, so I wanted to bring you something." "You've already given us so much," Tanya protested. "This is different. Open it." Inside the box was a beautiful photo album, already filled with pictures. Tanya's breath caught. They were photos from the past week. Tanya and Bella at the apartment, Bella playing in the courtyard, Tanya at her desk on her first day of work. "I've been taking pictures when you weren't looking," Grace admitted. "I wanted you to remember this time. How far you've come." Tanya hugged her tight. "Thank you. For everything." Grace stayed for dinner. They ate together, the three of them, and it felt natural. Easy. Like family. After Christmas, Bella started at Lincoln Elementary. Tanya walked her to school on the first day, her heart in her throat. Bella wore her new pink coat and carried a backpack Grace had given her, filled with school supplies. "Are you nervous?" Tanya asked. Bella shook her head. "I'm excited. I get to make friends." The teacher, Ms. Anderson, was young and enthusiastic. She welcomed Bella warmly and introduced her to the other students. Bella waved goodbye to Tanya and joined the class without hesitation. Tanya walked to work with tears in her eyes, but they were good tears. Her daughter was in school, safe and happy. She had a job she was good at. They had a home. At the office, Tanya dove into planning the health fair. She contacted local doctors who agreed to volunteer, arranged for free blood pressure and diabetes screenings, and organized educational workshops about nutrition and preventive care. One afternoon, while working late, she ran into someone unexpected. A woman about her age, African American with natural hair and a friendly smile, was leaving the community center where Tanya was setting up for an event. "Are you Tanya?" the woman asked. "Yes." "Do we know each other?" "I'm Denise Washington. I live in your building 1 floor down. I've seen you and your daughter around." "Oh, hi," Tanya said, surprised but pleased. "I volunteer here sometimes," Denise explained. "Teaching a budgeting class." "Are you working on the health fair?" "I am. It's my first big project." "That's amazing. Listen, I know you're new to the building. If you ever need anything or if Bella wants a playdate with my kids, just knock on my door. Apartment 203. Tanya felt warmth spread through her chest. "Thank you. I'd like that." They exchanged phone numbers, and Denise became Tanya's first real friend in years. Someone who wasn't helping her out of charity, but who genuinely liked her company. The health fair was a huge success. Over 200 people attended. Families got free health screenings, children received vaccinations, and everyone left with information about accessing affordable healthcare. Richard congratulated Tanya personally. "You did excellent work. I'm proud of you." "I couldn't have done it without the team," Tanya said modestly. "You led the team. That's the difference." At home, Bella showed Tanya her schoolwork every day. She was making friends, learning quickly, and seemed genuinely happy. One evening she asked, "Mommy, can I invite my friend Taylor over to play?" "Of course you can, baby." Tanya watched her daughter color at the kitchen table, content and secure. This was what she'd fought for. This simple, beautiful life. On a Friday evening, the Coleman family invited Tanya and Bella to dinner at their home. It was a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood, warm and welcoming despite its size. Grace cooked and they ate together around a large dining table. The conversation flowed easily. They talked about work, about Bella's school, about upcoming foundation projects. "You've become an essential part of our organization," Richard said. "And an important part of our lives." Tanya felt her eyes sting. "You saved us. I'll never be able to thank you enough." "You thank us every day," Grace said softly. "By working hard, by being a wonderful mother, by rebuilding your life. That's the thanks we need." Driving home that night, Bella asleep in the back seat, Tanya felt something she hadn't felt in years: peace. Real deep peace. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. She was building something good. And it was all because two strangers had chosen kindness over indifference. She promised herself she would remember this feeling. And someday when she had the chance, she would help someone else the way Richard and Grace had helped her. Winter settled into a comfortable routine. Tanya excelled at work, Bella thrived at school, and their apartment became a real home filled with laughter and warmth. But beneath Tanya's gratitude, a struggle was growing. She felt unworthy. Every time Richard or Grace offered additional help, something small like tickets to a children's theater show or a gift card for groceries, Tanya's stomach twisted with guilt. She kept detailed mental notes of every kindness, every dollar spent on her behalf, as if she could somehow repay it all someday. One Saturday in late January, Grace invited Tanya for coffee while Bella played with Denise's daughter at the apartment. They met at a quiet cafe near Tanya's building. "How are you settling in?" Grace asked, stirring cream into her coffee. "Good. Really good." Tanya wrapped her hands around her mug. "I still can't believe how much has changed. You've worked hard for it." But I wouldn't have had the chance without you and Richard. Tanya's voice dropped. Sometimes I feel like I'm taking advantage of your generosity. Like I don't deserve all this help. Grace set down her spoon and looked directly at Tanya. Can I tell you something about Richard? Tanya nodded. He grew up poor. Really poor. His father, Thomas, worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. Richard was smart, got good grades, but they couldn't afford college. He thought his future was working in a factory like his dad. Tanya listened, surprised. She'd assumed Richard came from money. When Richard was 18, a man named James Warren saw something in him. James was a successful businessman who volunteered at the community center where Richard played basketball. James offered to pay for Richard's college education. Full tuition, books, everything. That's incredible, Tanya whispered. Richard tried to refuse. He felt the same way you do now. Unworthy. Like he was taking advantage. But James told him something Richard never forgot. Grace leaned forward. He said, "This isn't charity. This is investment. I'm investing in your future because I believe in you. And someday you'll invest in someone else. That's how we change the world." Tanya felt tears building. James paid for Richard's college and medical school. Richard became a doctor, then built his fortune through medical technology patents. The first thing he did with that money was create the foundation. He wanted to be someone's James Warren. Is James still alive? Tanya asked. He passed away 5 years ago. But Richard visits his grave every year on the anniversary of the day they met. He brings flowers and tells James about the people he's helped. About the lives changed because James took a chance on him. Grace reached across the table and took Tanya's hand. You're not taking advantage. You're letting Richard honor James's legacy. You're part of a chain of kindness that goes back decades. And someday you'll add another link to that chain. Tanya wiped her eyes. I want to finish my nursing degree. I was 2 semesters away when I had to stop. But I can't ask you for more help. It's too much. What if you didn't have to ask? What if we offered? Grace. The foundation has a scholarship program for employees pursuing healthcare degrees. You'd qualify. You could take evening classes, finish your degree, and eventually move into a higher position. Maybe even become a nurse practitioner. Tanya's heart raced. I could really do that. You absolutely could. And you should. They talked for 2 more hours. Tanya shared her dreams, her fears, her worries about Bella growing up without a father. Grace listened without judgment, offering wisdom and support. You're stronger than you know, Grace said as they parted. And you're not alone anymore. Let us help. Let yourself accept that you deserve good things. That evening, Tanya sat with Bella on the couch, reading together. Bella's head rested against her shoulder, her small hand holding the page. Mommy, are you happy? Bella asked suddenly. Yes, baby. I'm very happy. Are you? Ah, I like our home. I like my school. I like Miss Grace and Mr. Richard. They're special people. They love us, right? Tanya's throat tightened. Yes, sweetheart. I think they do. Good. I love them too. The next week, Tanya met with Richard in his office. She decided to accept the scholarship offer, but she needed to say something first. I've been keeping track, she admitted, handing him a notebook. Inside, she'd written down every expense, every gift, everything Richard and Grace had provided. I know I can't pay you back right now, but someday I will. Every cent. Richard took the notebook and, without looking at it, put it in his desk drawer. This stays here. When you've finished your degree and you're established in your career, you can look at it again if you want. But Tanya, you don't owe me money. You owe yourself the chance to build the life you want. I just need you to know I'm not the kind of person who takes without giving back. I already know that. You give back every single day. You show up to work early. You stay late to finish projects. You treat everyone with kindness and respect. You're an amazing mother. That's what matters. Tanya felt the weight she'd been carrying start to lift. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for letting us be part of your journey. Tanya enrolled in evening classes at the community college. The foundation paid her tuition. Denise offered to watch Bella 2 evenings a week when Tanya had class. Mrs. Chin covered the other evenings. You've got a whole village now, Denise said, smiling. That's how it's supposed to be. Tanya's first night of class was nerve-wracking. She was older than most of the other students, and it had been years since she'd sat in a classroom. But as the professor began teaching, something clicked. She belonged here. She could do this. She studied during Bella's bedtime, sometimes falling asleep over her textbooks. She took notes compulsively, afraid of missing anything. Her first test came back with a 96% grade. She cried when she saw it. "I'm so proud of you, Mommy," Bella said when Tanya told her. "I'm proud of you too, baby. We're both working hard." At work, Tanya's confidence grew. She proposed new programs, led team meetings, and built strong relationships with community partners. Rachel gave her more responsibility, and Tanya rose to meet each challenge. One afternoon, Richard called her into his office. "I want you to represent the foundation at a healthcare conference next month. You'll present our community outreach model to other organizations." Tanya's eyes widened. "Me? Are you sure?" "I'm positive. You know the work better than anyone. You'll be excellent." Tanya prepared meticulously. She created a presentation, practiced in front of Denise and Grace, revised it based on their feedback. When the conference day arrived, she was nervous but ready. She stood in front of a room full of healthcare professionals and told her story. Not just the foundation's work, but her own experience. How she'd been homeless just months ago. How help had come when she needed it most. How that help had transformed not just her circumstances, but her entire future. The room was silent when she finished. Then someone started clapping. Then another person. Soon the entire audience was applauding. Afterward, several people approached her to ask questions, to get her contact information, to tell her they were inspired. Tanya felt 10 feet tall. Richard was waiting in the lobby, beaming with pride. "You were phenomenal. I was terrified. You didn't show it. You were confident, articulate, passionate. That's the Tanya I knew was in there all along." Driving home, Tanya thought about Grace's story. About James Warren seeing potential in a young Richard. About Richard seeing potential in her. About the chain of kindness that connected them all. She was beginning to understand that accepting help wasn't weakness. It was courage. It took courage to admit you needed support, to trust others with your vulnerability, to believe you deserved good things. That night, she tucked Bella into bed and sat beside her in the dim light of her nightlight. "Mommy, will you always be my mommy?" Bella asked sleepily. "Always, baby. Forever and ever. Even when I'm grown up?" "Even when you're grown up." Bella smiled and closed her eyes, secure in her mother's love. Tanya sat there for a long time watching her daughter sleep. She thought about where they'd been and where they were going. She thought about trust, about kindness, about the people who had lifted them up when they were down. And she made a promise to herself. She would finish her degree, she would build a career, and she would spend the rest of her life helping others the way she'd been helped. The chain of kindness would continue. She would make sure of it. February brought challenges Tanya hadn't anticipated. As she juggled work, school, and motherhood, exhaustion became her constant companion. She woke at 5 every morning, got Bella ready for school, worked a full day at the foundation, picked up Bella, helped with homework, made dinner, and then studied late into the night. On class nights, her schedule was even more compressed. One Tuesday evening, Tanya fell asleep over her anatomy textbook. She woke at midnight, panicked, realizing she hadn't prepared for a presentation at work the next day. She worked until 3 in the morning, her eyes burning, her coffee long gone cold. The presentation went poorly. She stumbled over her words, lost her place in her notes, and could see Rachel's concerned expression from across the conference room. Afterward, Rachel pulled her aside. "Tanya, are you okay?" "I'm fine," Tanya lied, then immediately regretted it. "Actually, no. I'm struggling. I'm trying to do everything and I'm afraid I'm not doing anything well." Rachel's expression softened. "Can I give you some advice? Please. You don't have to prove yourself every single day. You've already proven you belong here. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say no sometimes. You're allowed to be human." Tanya nodded, fighting tears. "I just don't want to disappoint anyone. The only person you might disappoint is yourself if you burn out. Talk to Richard. See if you can adjust your schedule. We want you here for the long term, not just until you collapse from exhaustion." That afternoon, Tanya met with Richard. She explained her struggles, expecting him to be disappointed. Instead, he nodded thoughtfully. "How about we adjust your hours?" he suggested. "Come in at 9 instead of 8. Leave at 4 on class days. You'll still work 40 hours a week, but it'll give you more flexibility. Won't that look bad to the rest of the team? The rest of the team will see someone balancing work, school, and single parenthood. If anything, you'll inspire them." Richard smiled. "You're not getting special treatment. You're getting reasonable accommodation. There's a difference." The schedule change helped, but Tanya still felt overwhelmed. One evening, while Bella was at Denise's apartment, Tanya broke down crying at the kitchen table. She felt like she was failing at everything. There was a knock at her door. She wiped her eyes and opened it to find Grace standing there with takeout containers. I was in the neighborhood, Grace said, though Tanya suspected that wasn't true. Thought you might like company for dinner? They ate together, and Tanya found herself pouring out her frustrations. I want to be perfect at everything. Perfect mother, perfect employee, perfect student. But I can't be. I'm always falling short somewhere. Grace listened quietly, then said, Can I tell you what I see? I see a woman who was homeless 3 months ago who now has a job, an apartment, and is back in school. I see someone who survived something most people couldn't imagine surviving, and who's not just surviving now but thriving. I see someone I'm honored to know. But I made mistakes today. I was late picking up Bella because I lost track of time studying. I snapped at her when she asked for help with her math homework. I'm not winning any Mother of the Year awards. You're human. You're allowed to have hard days. Bella doesn't need a perfect mother. She needs a loving one. And that's exactly what she has. Grace stayed for another hour, helping Tanya study for her upcoming exam. They quizzed each other, laughed at Tanya's mispronunciations of medical terms, and by the time Grace left, Tanya felt lighter. The next week brought an unexpected encounter. Tanya was at the grocery store when she heard a familiar voice. Tanya? Tanya Morrison? She turned to see Mr. Henderson, her former landlord. The man who had evicted her. Tanya's first instinct was anger, but when she looked at him, she saw how much he'd aged. His face was drawn, his clothes shabby. Mr. Henderson, she said carefully. I heard you landed on your feet. I'm glad. He looked down at his shopping basket, which held only a few basic items. I wanted to apologize. For the eviction. For not giving you more time. Tanya's anger faded. What happened? The bank foreclosed on the building. I was behind on the mortgage, drowning in debt. I had to evict tenants to try to sell units, but it wasn't enough. I lost everything. His voice cracked. I know that doesn't excuse what I did to you and Bella. Tanya stood there, processing. This man had caused her so much pain. But looking at him now, she saw someone who had also been desperate, who had also made hard choices. I forgive you, she said quietly. I understand what it's like to feel like you're out of options. Mr. Henderson's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. That means more than you know. They talked for a few more minutes. Mr. Henderson was living with his sister now, working part-time at a hardware store. He asked about Bella, and Tanya told him she was doing well. You're a good mother, Mr. Henderson said. I always knew that. I hated evicting you, but I didn't know what else to do. We're okay now, Tanya assured him. And I hope things get better for you too. As she drove home, Tanya thought about forgiveness. How it wasn't about excusing someone's actions, but about releasing the anger that weighed her down. She felt lighter having spoken to Mr. Henderson, having chosen grace over bitterness. That weekend, Bella had her school play. She was playing a flower in a production about spring. She'd been practicing her lines for weeks, her excitement building each day. The Coleman family came to watch. Richard, Grace, and even Richard's father, Thomas, who was visiting from out of state. Tanya sat with them in the auditorium, feeling like part of a family. Bella was wonderful on stage. She said her lines clearly, waved to the audience when it wasn't her turn to speak, and beamed with pride. Tanya's heart swelled watching her. Afterward, they all went out for ice cream. Thomas was quieter than the others, observing more than participating. Tanya felt him watching her, and she wondered what he was thinking. Your daughter is delightful, Thomas said finally. Thank you. She's my whole world. Richard tells me you're back in school. Yes, sir. Finishing my nursing degree. Thomas nodded slowly. That's admirable. Not many people would have the courage to start over the way you have. Tanya felt surprise at the compliment. I had help. Your son and Grace gave me a chance when no one else would. Richard has a good heart. Always has. Thomas paused. Sometimes too good. He wants to save everyone. There was something in his tone that made Tanya uneasy, but before she could respond, Bella grabbed her hand. Mommy, can I get sprinkles? Of course, baby. The moment passed, but Tanya remembered that conversation. She sensed Thomas had reservations about her, about Richard's generosity. She hoped she was wrong. At work, Tanya was given a new project, developing a program to help single parents access childcare while they worked or went to school. It was perfect for her. She understood the challenges firsthand. She threw herself into the work, interviewing other single parents, researching successful programs in other cities, and drafting a comprehensive proposal. Rachel praised her thoroughness. This could help so many families, Rachel said, reviewing the proposal. Let's present it to Richard and the board. The presentation was scheduled for late March. Tanya prepared meticulously, knowing this could make a real difference for people in situations like she'd been in. The night before the presentation, Denise came over with her kids. They all ate pizza together while Bella and Denise's daughter played. "You nervous about tomorrow?" Denise asked. "Terrified," Tanya admitted, "but also excited. This program could actually happen. It'll be amazing." "You're amazing." Tanya smiled. "I don't know about that." "I do. You're my hero, you know. Watching you rebuild your life, go back to school, work so hard. You inspire me every day." Tanya felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you. That means everything." The next day, she stood in front of the foundation's board of directors. She presented her program with passion and data. She talked about the barriers single parents faced, the cycle of poverty that trapped families, and how affordable childcare could break that cycle. When she finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then Richard started clapping. The other board members joined in. "Motion to approve funding for this program," one board member said. "Seconded," said another. The vote was unanimous. Tanya floated through the rest of the day. Her program was going to become real. Families would be helped. Children would be cared for. Parents would be able to work or go to school. That evening, she picked up Bella from after-school care and told her the news. "That's great, Mommy," Bella said, though she didn't fully understand. "It means other mommies won't have to worry as much. They'll be able to take care of their kids and still work just like I do. Because people helped us, right?" "Exactly, baby. Because people helped us, now we can help others." Bella thought about this. "I want to help people too when I grow up." Tanya hugged her daughter tight. "You already do, sweetheart. You make people happy just by being you." That night, Tanya studied for her midterms with a light heart. Yes, she was tired. Yes, it was hard. But she was building something meaningful. She was proving to herself that she could overcome anything. And she was teaching Bella by example that kindness and hard work mattered. That you could fall down and get back up. That you were never too broken to rebuild. These were lessons worth learning. Lessons worth living. March arrived with melting snow and the promise of spring. Tanya had settled into her rhythm. Work, school, motherhood, all balanced like plates spinning on sticks. She felt confident, capable, like she'd finally found solid ground beneath her feet. Then Richard's father came for an extended visit. Thomas Coleman was staying with Richard and Grace for a month while his house in Florida underwent renovations. He was a tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see through people. He'd built his modest success through decades of hard labor and careful saving, and he viewed the world with a skepticism born from struggle. Tanya first noticed the tension at a Sunday dinner at the Coleman house. Thomas sat at the head of the table, quiet but watchful. When Richard mentioned the new childcare program Tanya had developed, Thomas's expression barely changed. "How much is that costing the foundation?" Thomas asked. "About $200,000 for the first year," Richard answered. "It'll serve 50 families." Thomas did the math in his head. $4,000 per family. That's a lot of money. "It's an investment in their futures," Richard said calmly. "The program includes job training, so parents can increase their earning potential. Still a lot of money going to people who might not appreciate it." The room went quiet. Tanya felt her face flush. Was he talking about her? Grace changed the subject smoothly, but the damage was done. Tanya barely ate the rest of the meal. Over the next week, Tanya noticed Thomas showing up at the foundation offices. He was ostensibly there to visit Richard, but Tanya felt him watching her. Observing how she worked, how she interacted with others. One afternoon, she was in the break room making coffee when Thomas entered. "You work hard," he said without preamble. "Thank you, sir. My son seems very invested in your success." Tanya wasn't sure how to respond. "He's been incredibly generous. Too generous sometimes." Thomas poured himself coffee. "Richard has a habit of wanting to save everyone. He doesn't always think about the long-term costs." "I'm working to pay him back," Tanya said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I'm earning my place here." "Are you?" Thomas looked at her directly. "Or are you a charity case that's become too expensive?" The words hit like a slap. Tanya set down her coffee cup before her shaking hands could spill it. "Excuse me, I need to get back to work." She went to the bathroom and locked herself in a stall, fighting tears. Was she a charity case? Was she draining resources that could go to other people? Maybe Thomas was right. Maybe she was taking advantage of Richard's kindness. That evening, Tanya couldn't focus on her schoolwork. Thomas's words echoed in her mind. She looked around her apartment at everything Richard and Grace had provided. The furniture, the clothes, the scholarship, the job. Maybe it was too much. Maybe she should leave before she caused more problems. She was still spiraling when her phone rang. It was Grace. "I need to see you," Grace said. "Can I come over?" Of course. Grace arrived 20 minutes later with a bottle of wine and a determined expression. "We need to talk about Thomas." "It's fine," Tanya said quickly. "He has valid concerns." "No, he doesn't." Grace poured them each a glass of wine. "Thomas is struggling with seeing Richard give away money that he, Thomas, worked so hard to earn in the first place. But that's Thomas's issue, not yours. He called me a charity case." Grace's eyes flashed with anger. "He what?" "This afternoon. In the break room. He implied I'm taking advantage of Richard. That man." Grace took a breath, visibly calming herself. "Tanya, listen to me. Thomas grew up during the Depression. His father abandoned the family. He raised his siblings while working full-time at age 14. He's never fully trusted anyone outside family, and he's suspicious of people accepting help because he never accepted any himself. But maybe he has a point." "He doesn't." Grace took Tanya's hands. "You've earned everything you have. You work harder than anyone at that foundation. Your childcare program is going to help dozens of families. You're acing your classes while raising a daughter alone. You're not a charity case. You're a success story. But Richard has spent so much money on us. Richard has invested in you. There's a difference. And he's doing it because he wants to, because he sees your potential, because helping you brings him joy. Thomas doesn't understand that. He sees charity as weakness, both for the giver and the receiver." Tanya wiped her eyes. "What should I do?" "Keep doing what you're doing. Prove Thomas wrong by continuing to be amazing. And trust that Richard knows what he's doing." They talked for another hour. Grace shared more about Thomas, about the walls he built around himself after a lifetime of hardship. She wasn't excusing his behavior, but she was helping Tanya understand it. The next day at work, Richard called Tanya into his office. She went with dread, expecting him to say Thomas had convinced him she was a mistake. Instead, Richard looked angry. "Grace told me what my father said to you. It's okay." "It's not okay." Richard stood and walked to the window. "My father is a good man in many ways. But he's also stubborn and judgmental. He doesn't understand what I'm trying to do here. He's worried about you. About the foundation's finances. The foundation is fine. More than fine. We're helping more people than ever and we're financially stable." Richard turned to face her. "Tanya, I need you to understand something. Helping you wasn't charity. It was justice. You deserved better than what life had given you. I had the power to make things better, so I did. That's not charity. That's humanity." Tanya felt tears building again. She'd cried more in the past 24 hours than in the past 3 months combined. "My father sees the world through the lens of scarcity," Richard continued. "There's never enough. Every dollar given away is a dollar lost. But I see abundance. I see opportunity. I see the chance to break cycles of poverty and give people the tools to build better lives. He thinks you're being taken advantage of. He's wrong. You've given back to this foundation more than money could measure. You've brought passion, intelligence, and heart to everything you do. The programs you've created will outlast both of us. That's the return on investment that matters." Tanya nodded, unable to speak. "Don't let my father's fear make you doubt yourself. You belong here. You've earned your place." That evening, Tanya picked up Bella from after-school care and went to the park. They sat on the swings together, pushing off gently. "Mommy, why do you look sad?" Bella asked. "I'm not sad, baby. Just thinking." "About what?" "About how sometimes people don't understand each other, even when they're trying to be good." Bella thought about this. Like when Taylor said my drawing was ugly, but she was just sad because her drawing didn't turn out how she wanted? Exactly like that. Sometimes people say mean things because they're hurting inside. Did someone say something mean to you? Sort of. But it's okay. I know they didn't mean it the way it sounded. Bella reached over and patted Tanya's hand. "You're the best mommy in the world. Don't be sad." Tanya smiled through her tears. "Thank you, sweet girl. You always know how to make me feel better." The tension with Thomas continued for another week. Tanya tried to avoid him, but the foundation offices weren't that large. She felt his disapproving gaze during staff meetings, sensed his questions and conversations with Richard that stopped when she entered the room. Then something unexpected happened. The foundation hosted a community event, a health and wellness fair at a neighborhood center. Tanya had organized it, coordinating volunteers, arranging for free health screenings, and setting up educational workshops. Thomas came with Richard and Grace. Tanya watched him observe the event with his usual skeptical expression. But then a young mother approached the registration table with 3 small children. She looked exhausted, overwhelmed. Tanya recognized that look. It was the same one she'd worn months ago. "Is this really free?" the mother asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Completely free," Tanya assured her. "Health screenings, dental checkups for the kids, nutrition counseling. Everything. And we have childcare so you can attend the parenting workshops if you're interested." The mother's eyes filled with tears. "I can't afford the doctor. My kids need checkups for school, but I don't have insurance." "You came to the right place." Tanya came around the table and gently guided her to the screening area. "We'll take care of everything. You're not alone." She spent the next hour personally helping the family, making sure they got everything they needed. She introduced the mother to Patricia, the social worker who could help her apply for state insurance. She made sure the kids each got a toy and a book to take home. Thomas watched all of this from across the room. At the end of the event, as they were cleaning up, Thomas approached Tanya. She braced herself for another criticism. "That mother you helped," Thomas said. "The one with 3 children." "Yes." "You saw yourself in her, didn't you?" Tanya met his eyes. "I was her. Not that long ago." Thomas was quiet for a long moment. "My son saw something in you that I didn't. I apologize for that." Tanya's surprise must have shown on her face. "I've spent my whole life believing that if you work hard enough, you won't need help. That accepting help is weakness." Thomas looked around at the families leaving the event, their arms full of resources and information. "But watching you today, I realize that's not true. Sometimes people need help through no fault of their own. And giving that help isn't weakness. It's strength." "Thank you for saying that," Tanya said softly. "You're doing good work here. Important work. I was wrong about you." He walked away before Tanya could respond. She stood there, stunned, feeling like a weight had lifted from her shoulders. Richard appeared beside her. "Did my father just apologize to you?" "I think he did. That's a rare occurrence. You must have really impressed him." "I didn't do anything special. I just helped someone who needed it." "That's exactly what impressed him." Richard smiled. "Welcome to the family officially." That night, Tanya tucked Bella into bed and thought about Thomas's words. She'd spent so long feeling like she needed to prove herself, to earn her place, to justify the help she'd received. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was simply to use the help she'd been given to help others. To take the blessing she'd received and pass it forward. That was the real return on investment. Not money or status or recognition, but the ripple effect of kindness spreading through a community. She fell asleep that night feeling for the first time like she truly belonged. Not because she'd earned it through some superhuman effort, but because she was part of something bigger than herself. She was part of a family built on kindness. And that was enough. April brought warmer weather and new beginnings. The trees lining Tanya's street burst into bloom, pink and white petals drifting like snow on sunny days. Bella spent hours at the playground after school, her laughter carrying through open windows. The foundation was preparing for its annual gala, a fundraising event where donors and community partners gathered to celebrate the year's achievements. Richard had asked Tanya to speak about the childcare program, which had already enrolled 20 families in its pilot phase. "I've never spoken at something like this," Tanya said nervously during a planning meeting. "You spoke at the healthcare conference," Rachel reminded her. "And you were phenomenal. This is no different. That was professionals. This is wealthy donors. What if they think I don't belong there?" Grace, who was helping plan the event, looked up from her notes. "Then they'll be wrong. You have every right to be there. More than most people, actually. You understand the work we do because you've lived it." Thomas, who had been attending foundation meetings more regularly, spoke up. "Grace is right. Your perspective is valuable. Don't underestimate yourself." Tanya still felt surprised every time Thomas supported her. Their relationship had shifted after the community health fair. He wasn't warm exactly, but he was respectful. He asked about Bella, about Tanya's classes, about her work. He listened when she spoke. The gala was scheduled for the last Saturday of April. Tanya went shopping with Grace for a dress, something she'd never done before. Grace took her to a boutique where the clothes cost more than Tanya used to make in a week. "I can't afford any of this," Tanya whispered. "My treat," Grace said. "Consider it part of your work wardrobe. You'll have more events like this in the future." They found a dress in deep blue, elegant but not too formal, that made Tanya feel beautiful and confident. Grace also insisted on new shoes and a small handbag. "You look stunning," Grace said as Tanya examined herself in the mirror. I look like someone else. You look like yourself, just polished. There's a difference. The night of the gala, Denise came over to watch Bella. Have fun being fancy, she said, hugging Tanya. You deserve this. The event was at an elegant hotel downtown, the same one Richard had taken Tanya and Bella to that first night. Walking through the doors now, dressed in her beautiful gown, felt surreal. For months ago she'd been homeless. Now she was speaking at a fundraiser. The ballroom was spectacular. Round tables covered in white linens, centerpieces of flowers, soft lighting that made everything glow. People in expensive clothes mingled with champagne glasses, their laughter filling the space. Tanya felt out of place until Richard appeared with Thomas beside him. You look wonderful, Richard said warmly. Thank you. I'm terrified. That means you care. You'll do great. Thomas nodded his agreement. Your speech is strong. I read the draft. It'll move people. Tanya had shown Thomas her speech the previous week, uncertain if she should include personal details about her own experience with homelessness. He'd encouraged her to be honest. People give money to causes that touch their hearts, he'd said. Your story will touch hearts. The evening began with dinner. Tanya sat at a table with Richard, Grace, Thomas, Rachel, and several major donors. The conversation flowed easily. When people asked what she did at the foundation, she explained the childcare program with growing confidence. That's exactly the kind of initiative we need, one donor said. Too many programs address symptoms rather than root causes. Affordable childcare addresses a root cause. After dinner, Richard took the stage to talk about the foundation's work. He spoke about health initiatives, education programs, and emergency assistance for families in crisis. Then he introduced Tanya. Our next speaker knows firsthand the challenges facing single parents in our community. She joined our team 4 months ago and has already made an incredible impact. Please welcome Tanya Morrison. Tanya walked to the stage on shaking legs. She looked out at the crowd, at all those well-dressed strangers, and felt panic rising. Then she saw Bella's teacher, Ms. Anderson, sitting at a table near the back. Ms. Anderson gave her an encouraging smile and thumbs up. Tanya took a breath and began. 4 months ago I was homeless. My daughter and I were evicted from our apartment on the coldest night of winter. We had nowhere to go. The shelters were full. I sat at a bus stop in the snow, holding my 5-year-old daughter, and I didn't know if we would survive the night. The room had gone completely silent. Then a stranger stopped his car. A man I'd never met, who had no reason to help us, who could have driven past like everyone else. But he didn't. Richard Coleman got out of his warm car, stood in the snow, and offered help. And when I was too scared and too proud to accept, he insisted. Not in a demanding way, but in a way that made me understand something important. Accepting help isn't weakness. It's courage. Tanya looked directly at Thomas as she said this. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Richard and Grace gave us a place to stay that night. Then they gave us an apartment. Then a job. Then a scholarship so I could finish my nursing degree. They gave us hope when we had none left. They gave us a future when we thought we had no future. She paused, her voice thick with emotion. But here's what I want you to understand. They didn't do this because they're saints or because they wanted recognition. They did it because they believe everyone deserves a chance. They did it because they understand that circumstances, not character, often determine whether someone succeeds or struggles. They did it because they know that helping one family creates a ripple effect through an entire community. Tanya described the childcare program, how it was already helping families. She talked about the mother she'd met at the community health fair, the one who reminded her of herself. That mother now has childcare for her children and is enrolled in job training. In 6 months she'll be working as a medical assistant. Her children will have stability and opportunity. And someday when those children are grown, they'll remember that their community helped their family when they needed it most. They'll remember that kindness matters. And maybe they'll help someone else. She wrapped up her speech with a call to action, asking donors to support the expansion of the child care program. Every dollar you give changes a life. Change my life. It can change countless others. The applause was thunderous. People stood. Tanya saw tears on many faces, including Thomas's. As she returned to her table, donors approached her, asking questions, expressing support. Several wrote checks on the spot. One couple pledged $50,000 specifically for the childcare program. Richard hugged her. That was perfect. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for giving me a story worth sharing. Later in the evening, Thomas asked Tanya to step outside onto the terrace with him. The spring air was cool, refreshing after the warmth of the ballroom. "I need to tell you something," Thomas said, looking out at the city lights. "Okay." "When Richard first told me about you, I was angry. I thought he was being foolish, throwing money at a problem that couldn't be solved. I thought you would take advantage of his generosity and disappear as soon as you got what you needed." Tanya said nothing, letting him speak. "I was wrong about you. Completely wrong." Thomas turned to face her. "But more than that, I was wrong about what charity means. I spent my whole life believing that people should pull themselves up by their bootstraps, that accepting help was shameful. I judged others for needing support because I was too proud to ever accept it myself." "You survived through hard work," Tanya said. "That's admirable. Maybe. But I also pushed away people who tried to help. I told myself I didn't need anyone. And you know what that cost me." Thomas's voice cracked slightly. "My wife left me 20 years ago because I was too stubborn to accept her help when I lost my job. My daughter doesn't speak to me because I criticized her for going to therapy when she was depressed. I've spent my whole life being so determined to be self-sufficient that I've ended up alone. You have Richard. I almost lost him too. When he wanted to start this foundation, I told him he was wasting his money. I said the same thing I said about you, that people would take advantage of him. Richard went ahead anyway, and we didn't speak for 2 years. Tanya hadn't known this. Watching you tonight, hearing your speech, I finally understood what Richard has been trying to tell me for years. Community matters. Connection matters. We're not meant to survive alone. We're meant to help each other." Thomas pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. "I want to contribute to your childcare program. This is $50,000. It's a significant portion of my savings, but I can't think of a better way to use it." Tanya stared at the envelope. "Mr. Coleman, you don't have to do this." "I know I don't. I want to. Let me be part of what you're building. Let me help break the cycle I've been trapped in my whole life." "Thank you," Tanya whispered, accepting the envelope. "This will help so many families." "Good. That's good." Thomas cleared his throat, emotion making his voice rough. "You're a remarkable woman, Tanya. My son was right about you. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." They went back inside together. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversations and congratulations. By the end of the night, the foundation had raised over $500,000, much of it designated for the childcare program. Driving home with Grace and Richard, Tanya felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "You changed my father tonight," Richard said from the front seat. "I've never seen him like that. Open. Vulnerable." "He changed himself," Tanya replied. "I just gave him a reason to." "That's what you do," Grace said, squeezing Tanya's hand. "You help people see the best in themselves." At home, Denise was asleep on the couch. Bella was tucked into bed, peaceful and safe. Tanya paid Denise, thanked her, and walked her to the door. Then she went to Bella's room and sat beside her daughter's bed in the dark. She thought about the journey they'd taken from that frozen bus stop to this moment. She thought about Thomas's transformation, about the ripple effects of kindness, about how helping others was really about healing yourself. She'd come so far. They both had. And the journey was far from over. But for tonight, in this quiet moment, Tanya simply felt grateful. Grateful for second chances, for people who believed in her, for the opportunity to build a life worth living. She kissed Bella's forehead and whispered, "We made it, baby. We really made it." Summer arrived with long, bright days and the sweet freedom of Bella's school vacation. The childcare program had expanded beyond Tanya's wildest hopes. With the money raised at the gala, including Thomas's generous donation, they were now serving 75 families. 3 of those families had parents who had completed job training and found stable employment. Tanya herself had aced her spring semester, maintaining a straight A average while working full-time. She was halfway through her nursing degree now, with just 1 year remaining. Rachel had already mentioned that once Tanya graduated, there would be a position waiting for her as a program director with a significant salary increase. But the achievement that meant the most to Tanya happened on a humid Tuesday in June. Patricia, the social worker, called Tanya into her office. "I want to talk to you about expanding our services," Patricia said. "Specifically, emergency housing assistance for families facing homelessness." Tanya's heart beat faster. "Tell me more." "We have donors interested in funding a program that provides immediate temporary housing for families in crisis. Not just a hotel room for a night, but stable housing for up to 6 months while we help them find employment and permanent homes." "That's exactly what I needed," Tanya said, her voice thick. "That would have changed everything for Bella and me." "I know. That's why I want you to design and run the program." Tanya looked at Patricia in disbelief. Me? Run the entire program? You understand the challenges these families face better than anyone. You know what they need because you've lived it. Richard and I agree you're the perfect person for this. Tanya's hands trembled. This was a chance to help people in the exact situation she'd been in. To be someone's Richard Coleman. To give families the hope she'd been given. Yes, she said firmly. Absolutely yes. Over the next month, Tanya poured herself into developing the program. She researched best practices, interviewed families who had experienced homelessness, and worked with local housing authorities to identify available units. Richard secured a building with 20 furnished apartments specifically for the program. In late July the program launched. It was called Second Chances, and the first family moved in on a Saturday morning. Tanya met them at the building. A young woman named Nicole Harper, 26 years old, with 2 children, a 7-year-old son named Marcus and a 3-year-old daughter named Sophie. Nicole had been living in her car for 3 weeks after fleeing a dangerous relationship. Tanya saw her own fear and exhaustion reflected in Nicole's eyes. Welcome, Tanya said warmly, shaking Nicole's hand. You're safe now. Nicole started crying. Marcus held her hand while Sophie clung to her leg, wide-eyed and uncertain. I'm sorry, Nicole said, wiping her eyes. I'm just so tired. I know, Tanya said gently. I was where you are not that long ago. And I promise you it gets better. She showed them to their apartment. 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, a bathroom with a tub for the kids. It was furnished with everything they needed. Beds, dishes, towels, even toys for the children. Nicole walked through the apartment like she was in a dream. This is really ours? For 6 months, absolutely. Rent-free. During that time, we'll help you find employment, enroll Marcus in school, get childcare for Sophie, and secure permanent housing. You'll meet with Patricia, our social worker, twice a week. We'll also connect you with legal aid to help with your situation. Why are you helping me? Nicole asked, suspicious despite her gratitude. What do you want? Nothing. I want nothing except for you and your children to be safe and stable. Tanya pulled out her phone and showed Nicole a picture from that December night. Tanya and Bella outside the hotel, both looking exhausted and scared. This was me 7 months ago. A stranger helped us when we had nowhere to go. Now I get to help you. That's how this works. Nicole stared at the photo. That was really you? That was really me. And now look. Tanya showed her recent photos. Bella at her school play, Tanya at the foundation gala, pictures of their cozy apartment. 7 months. That's all it took to go from homeless to stable. You can do this. I'll help you. Nicole broke down sobbing. Tanya held her while the children watched, unsure what was happening. These are good tears, Tanya assured them. Your mom is just relieved. Everything's going to be okay now. Over the following weeks, Tanya worked closely with Nicole and the other families in the program. She connected them with resources, advocated for them with employers and landlords, celebrated their victories and supported them through setbacks. Nicole found a job as a receptionist at a medical office. Marcus enrolled in a summer program at the elementary school. Sophie got into the subsidized daycare connected to Tanya's childcare program. One evening in August, Nicole invited Tanya to dinner at the apartment. It was nothing fancy, just spaghetti and salad, but the home felt warm and lived in. Marcus showed Tanya his drawings from summer program. Sophie demonstrated how she could count to 10. I got my first paycheck yesterday, Nicole said as they ate. It's not much, but it's mine. I earned it. That's huge, Tanya said, beaming with pride. I've been thinking about what happens when the 6 months are up. I'm scared I won't be ready. We'll make sure you're ready. And Patricia is working with a landlord who has affordable units available. You'll transition smoothly. I promise. Nicole set down her fork. Can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever feel guilty? Like you should have been able to do it on your own? Tanya thought about this carefully. I used to. I felt like accepting help meant I was weak or had failed somehow. But I've learned that's not true. We're not meant to survive alone. We're meant to support each other. You're not weak for accepting help. You're strong for doing what your children needed even when it was hard. I just want them to have a good life. They will. Because you're fighting for them. Because you didn't give up even when things got impossibly hard. That's what they'll remember. Not that you struggled, but that you kept going. After dinner, driving home through warm summer streets, Tanya thought about how much her life had changed. She'd gone from receiving help to giving it. From feeling powerless to empowering others. From surviving to thriving. At home, Bella was at the kitchen table working on a craft project with Denise's daughter. Denise was on the couch reading. "How'd it go?" Denise asked. "Good. Really good. Nicole is doing so well. You're making such a difference, you know. These families are lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have this chance." Later that night, after Bella was asleep, Tanya sat at her desk reviewing applications for the Second Chances program. There were so many families in need. Single mothers mostly. Women who had lost everything through no fault of their own. Women who just needed a break, a chance, someone to believe in them. Tanya approved 5 new families for the program. They would move in next month. 5 more chances to break the cycle. 5 more families given hope. Her phone rang. It was Grace. "I wanted to let you know," Grace said. "The board approved funding to expand Second Chances to 40 apartments. You'll need to hire staff to help manage it." Tanya gasped. 40 apartments? That's incredible. You built something special. The board sees the results. The families you've helped are succeeding. That's the proof they needed. After they hung up, Tanya sat in the quiet of her apartment, overwhelmed with emotion. 40 families. 40 chances to change lives. 40 opportunities to pay forward the kindness she'd received. She thought about that night in December, sitting at the bus stop with Bella, certain their story was ending. She could never have imagined this future. Never dreamed she would go from desperate and homeless to running programs that helped others. But here she was. The next day at work, Richard called Tanya into his office. "I hear congratulations are in order," he said, smiling. 40 apartments. That's going to help a lot of families. I can't believe it's real. Sometimes I have to pinch myself. You've earned every bit of this success. I'm proud of you. I couldn't have done any of it without you and Grace. You gave me the foundation to build from. We gave you an opportunity. You did the building." Richard leaned back in his chair. "I want to tell you something. The program we created, the way we did it, using someone with lived experience to design and run it, other cities are noticing. We've gotten calls from foundations in Chicago, Seattle, Atlanta. They want to replicate what you've done." "Really? Really? Your model works because it's built on understanding and compassion, not assumptions about what poor people need. You know what they need because you were there." Tanya felt tears building. "I just wanted to help people the way I was helped. And you are. More than you know." That weekend, the foundation organized a celebration for families who had completed the Second Chances program. 3 families had transitioned to permanent housing and stable employment. Nicole was among them. The event was at a community center with food, music, and games for the kids. Bella played with Marcus and Sophie, their laughter filling the space. Parents shared their stories, their struggles, their victories. Nicole stood to speak, her voice strong and clear. 7 weeks ago, I was living in my car with my children. I was scared, exhausted, and out of options. Then I met Tanya Morrison, who gave me hope. Who told me I wasn't alone. Who helped me believe I could build a better life for my kids." Nicole looked directly at Tanya. "You saved us. You gave us a second chance. And I promise you I will pay it forward. When I'm stable, when I'm strong, I will help someone else the way you helped me." The room erupted in applause. Tanya wiped tears from her cheeks. This was why she did this work. This moment. This transformation. This proof that kindness mattered. After the event, Richard, Grace, and Thomas stood with Tanya watching the families leave, their faces bright with hope. "You've built something remarkable," Thomas said. "I was wrong about a lot of things, but I was most wrong about you. You're not just someone who needed help. You're someone who's changing the world." "I'm just doing what was done for me." "That's exactly what makes it special," Thomas said. "You're creating a cycle of kindness. Every family you help will help someone else. It spreads like ripples in a pond." Grace hugged Tanya. "I'm so proud of you. You've come so far." "We've come so far," Tanya corrected. "All of us together." Driving home that evening with Bella beside her, Tanya thought about the chain of kindness that connected them all. James Warren helping Richard. Richard helping her. Her helping Nicole and dozens of other families. Those families going on to help others. It was beautiful. It was powerful. It was proof that one person's choice to be kind could change the world. "Mommy?" Bella said from the passenger seat. "Yes, baby? When I grow up, I want to help people like you do." Tanya reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand. "You already do, sweetheart. Just by being kind and caring. That's how it starts." "Will we always help people?" "Always. Because we know what it's like to need help. And we'll never forget." That night, Tanya updated her gratitude journal, something Grace had encouraged her to start. She wrote about the day's successes, about Nicole's speech, about the expansion of second chances. But mostly she wrote about hope. About how hope, once kindled, spreads like fire. About how one person's compassion can ignite a movement. About how she'd gone from hopeless to hope giver in less than a year. She was living proof that transformation was possible. That people could rise from rock bottom to help others climb out too. And she was just getting started. September arrived with cool mornings and the excitement of a new school year. Bella started first grade, confident and happy, carrying a new backpack Richard and Grace had given her. Tanya watched her daughter run into school without looking back, secure in the knowledge that her mother would be there when she came out. That security, Tanya reflected, was worth more than anything money could buy. The Second Chances program was thriving. All 40 apartments were now occupied, and Tanya had hired 2 staff members to help manage the program. Patricia, who had left her social work position to join full-time, and Nicole, who had completed a social services certification program and wanted to help other families the way she'd been helped. "I never thought I'd be on this side of things," Nicole said during a staff meeting. "Helping instead of being helped. It feels good." "That's the whole point," Tanya said, smiling. "You've lived it. You understand what these families need." At home, Tanya's own life had reached a new level of stability. She'd moved to a larger apartment in the same building, a 3-bedroom that she could finally afford with her increased salary as program director. Bella had her own room, and there was a small office where Tanya studied for her final year of nursing school. She was on track to graduate the following spring, and Rachel had already confirmed that a position as director of community health initiatives would be waiting for her, with a salary that would put Tanya firmly into the middle class. Not wealthy but secure. Comfortable. Able to save for Bella's future. One October evening, Tanya received a call from Richard. "Can you come to my office tomorrow? There's something Grace and I want to discuss with you." Tanya's stomach flipped nervously. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Better than fine, actually. We just have a proposal for you." The next morning, Tanya sat in Richard's office with Grace beside him. They both looked excited but serious. "We've been talking," Richard began, "about the foundation's future. Specifically about succession planning." Tanya waited, unsure where this was going. "I'm not retiring anytime soon," Richard continued, "but I am 67 years old. At some point, someone else will need to lead this organization. Someone who understands its mission and values. Someone who's lived the challenges our programs address." Grace leaned forward. "We want that person to be you." Tanya stared at them. "Me? Run the entire foundation?" "Not immediately," Richard clarified. "This would be a 5-year plan. You'd finish your nursing degree, work as director of community health initiatives for a few years, and gradually take on more leadership responsibilities. By the time you're ready, you'll have the experience and knowledge to lead effectively. But I've only been here 9 months. There are people with decades of experience." "Experience isn't everything," Grace said. "Vision is what matters. Compassion is what matters. Understanding the people we serve is what matters. You have all of that. We've watched you build the Second Chances program from nothing," Richard added. "We've seen your leadership skills, your ability to inspire others, your commitment to the mission. You're exactly the kind of leader this foundation needs." Tanya felt tears building. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll think about it," Grace suggested. "You don't need to decide now. But we wanted you to know that we see this as your future if you want it." Tanya left the meeting in a daze. Her running a major foundation. It seemed impossible. Yet as she thought about it throughout the day, it began to feel right. She'd spent her life feeling powerless, and now she had the chance to have real power. Not power over people, but power to help people. To shape programs that changed lives. That evening, she talked it over with Denise while their daughters played together. "Of course you should do it," Denise said immediately. "You're amazing at this work. Why wouldn't you lead?" "Because I'm scared I'll mess it up. That I'm not qualified." "You're more qualified than most people. You've lived what these families are going through. That's the qualification that matters." Tanya talked to Thomas too, who had become an unexpected mentor. They met for coffee once a week, and Thomas shared his business wisdom while Tanya shared her program updates. "Leadership isn't about knowing everything," Thomas told her. "It's about caring enough to surround yourself with people who know what you don't. You have the care. The rest you can learn." By early November, Tanya had made her decision. She called Richard and Grace and told them yes. She would work toward leading the foundation. They celebrated with dinner at the Coleman house, the 4 of them plus Bella and Thomas. It felt like a family gathering, warm and easy. Bella sat next to Thomas, who had become her honorary grandfather, telling him about her school play. "I'm going to be a tree," Bella announced proudly. "An important role," Thomas said seriously. "Trees provide oxygen and shade. Very crucial." "That's what I said," Bella agreed. After dinner, Richard raised his glass. "A toast to Tanya. From that December night when we first met to today, watching you grow into a leader has been one of the greatest privileges of my life. You've made our family stronger and our foundation better. Here's to your future." They all clinked glasses. Tanya looked around the table at these people who had become her family. Grace, who had shown her what unconditional support looked like. Thomas, who had learned to open his heart. Richard, who had seen potential in her when she couldn't see it herself. And Bella, the reason she'd kept fighting when giving up would have been easier. "Thank you," Tanya said, her voice thick with emotion. "All of you. For seeing something in me I didn't know was there. For giving me a chance when I had nothing. For teaching me that accepting help isn't weakness and that kindness can change the world." "You changed your own world," Grace said softly. "We just provided the tools." In December, the foundation held its first anniversary celebration for the Second Chances program. 53 families had been served in its first year. 38 had successfully transitioned to permanent housing and stable employment. The success rate was far beyond industry standards. Media covered the event. News crews interviewed Tanya, Nicole, and other families. The story of how a program designed by someone who had experienced homelessness was succeeding where traditional programs often failed spread across the city and beyond. That night, Tanya's phone rang. It was a producer from a national morning show asking if she'd come to New York to discuss the program on air. "People need to hear your story," the producer said. "And they need to know about this model. It could be replicated nationwide." Tanya agreed, simultaneously terrified and excited. 2 weeks later, she and Bella flew to New York. It was Bella's first time on a plane, her first time in such a big city. They made it an adventure, visiting the Central Park Zoo and eating pizza in Times Square. The morning show interview went well. Tanya spoke honestly about her experience, about the program's success, about the importance of addressing root causes of poverty rather than just symptoms. "What do you want people to understand about homelessness?" the host asked. "That it can happen to anyone," Tanya said. "I had a job, an apartment, a plan. Then my daughter got sick, I lost my job, and within months we were on the street. Most people experiencing homelessness aren't chronically homeless. They're people who hit a rough patch and don't have a safety net. If we provide that safety net, temporary support with dignity and respect, most people recover quickly and go on to thrive." After the interview aired, the foundation's phone rang constantly. Other cities wanted to implement the program. Donors offered funding. Families in need reached out for help. Tanya worked with Rachel to create a training program for other organizations wanting to replicate Second Chances. Within 6 months, similar programs launched in 5 cities, each led by someone with lived experience of homelessness. The model was spreading. The ripple effect was real. On a cold evening in late February, exactly 1 year after Tanya had started at the foundation, she received an unexpected visitor at her apartment. When she opened the door, she found a young woman holding a little girl's hand. The woman was crying. "Are you Tanya Morrison?" the woman asked. "Yes. Can I help you? I saw you on TV. I heard about Second Chances. We have nowhere to go." The woman's voice broke. "My apartment building burned down last week. Insurance is taking forever. We've been staying with friends but we can't anymore. I called the foundation and they said there's a waiting list." Tanya looked at the little girl, who couldn't have been more than 4 years old. She was wearing a pink coat, holding a stuffed animal. Tanya flashed back to Bella at that age, to that December night. "What's your name?" Tanya asked gently. "Amanda. Amanda Rodriguez. This is my daughter, Sophia. Come inside. Let's talk." Over the next hour, Tanya heard Amanda's story. She'd been a preschool teacher, renting an apartment in an older building. The fire had destroyed everything they owned. Insurance would eventually compensate them, but in the meantime they had nothing. Amanda had missed work to deal with the crisis and was afraid she'd lose her job. "I'll call the foundation first thing in the morning," Tanya promised. "We'll find you a spot, even if we have to bump someone back temporarily. You and Sophia will not sleep on the street." Amanda sobbed with relief. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I've been where you are. I know how it feels. You're going to be okay. I promise." True to her word, Tanya worked with the team to get Amanda and Sophia into an apartment within 2 days. She personally helped them move in, brought them groceries, made sure they had everything they needed. Why are you doing this? Amanda asked, echoing the question Tanya herself had asked Richard a year ago. Because someone did it for me. Because you deserve help. Because that's what community means. 6 months later, Amanda had stabilized. She'd returned to work, saved enough for deposits on a new apartment, and was ready to transition out of second chances. On her last day in the program, she came to Tanya's office with tears in her eyes. I want to do what you do, Amanda said. I want to help families the way you helped me. How do I start? Tanya smiled, remembering asking similar questions. Start by healing. Take care of yourself and Sophia. Build your stable life. And when you're ready, there will be opportunities to give back. The foundation is always looking for people with lived experience. Your time will come. Thank you. For everything. You saved our lives. You saved your own lives by not giving up. I just provided a bridge. That spring, Tanya graduated from nursing school. Bella, Richard, Grace, Thomas, Denise, Nicole, Amanda, and dozens of families from Second Chances attended the ceremony. When Tanya's name was called and she walked across the stage to receive her diploma, the entire section erupted in cheers. She looked out at all those faces, at the community she'd built and that had built her up, and felt overwhelming gratitude. This was what it meant to belong. This was what it meant to be loved and to love in return. After graduation, there was a party at Tanya's apartment. It was crowded and loud and perfect. Children ran through the rooms while adults talked and laughed. Grace had made a cake. Thomas told stories. Richard gave a speech about how proud he was. Later, when things quieted down and most people had left, Tanya and Bella stood on their small balcony looking at the city lights. Mommy, do you remember when we didn't have a home? Bella asked. I remember, baby. I was scared that night. I was too. But it turned out okay, didn't it? Tanya pulled her daughter close. It turned out better than okay. It turned out amazing. Because Mr. Richard helped us. Because Mr. Richard helped us, and then we helped other people, and those people will help more people. That's how kindness works. It grows. Bella thought about this. I'm going to help people when I grow up too. I know you will. You already do. That night, after Bella was asleep, Tanya sat at her desk and opened her laptop. She'd been working on a book about her experience, about the Second Chances program, about how communities could address homelessness effectively. Her publisher wanted it by fall. She wrote late into the night, words flowing easily. She wrote about that December night, about Richard stopping his car, about the choice that changed everything. She wrote about Grace's kindness, about Thomas's transformation, about the families she'd helped. But mostly she wrote about hope. About how hope, once ignited, couldn't be extinguished. About how one person's decision to help could set off a chain reaction that changed hundreds of lives. She wrote until exhaustion finally claimed her. Before shutting down her computer, she looked at the book's dedication page. For everyone who has ever felt invisible, forgotten, or without hope. You matter. Your life has value. Your story isn't over. This is for you. On a Saturday morning in June, Tanya received a call that brought tears to her eyes. The foundation had been awarded a national grant to expand Second Chances to 10 more cities. The program that started with Tanya's lived experience and Richard's vision would now help thousands of families. This is incredible, Tanya said to Richard when they met to discuss the expansion. This is just the beginning. Your model works because it's built on what people actually need, not on assumptions about what they should need. That's revolutionary. It's common sense. It's treating people like human beings. Which is apparently revolutionary, Richard said with a sad smile. But we're changing that. One family at a time. That afternoon, Tanya got another phone call. This one was from James Warren's widow, Dorothy, whom Richard had told her about. Richard speaks so highly of you, Dorothy said, her voice warm and kind. He says you remind him of himself at your age. Determined to help others because you understand what it's like to need help. I'm honored by the comparison. Your husband changed Richard's life, and in doing so, changed mine and so many others. That was James's greatest talent. Seeing potential in people they didn't see in themselves. I'd like to meet you if you're willing. I'm in town next week. They met for lunch at a quiet restaurant. Dorothy was in her 80s, elegant and sharp-minded. She told Tanya stories about James, about his passion for education and opportunity, about his belief that everyone deserved a chance. James used to say that investing in people was the only investment that mattered, Dorothy said. Everything else, money, property, possessions, eventually fades. But people, the lives you touch, the changes you inspire, that lasts forever. Richard has honored that philosophy beautifully. And now you are too. I hear you're being groomed to eventually lead the foundation. In a few years, yes. If I'm ready, you'll be ready. You have what matters most. You've walked in the shoes of the people you serve. That gives you wisdom no degree can provide. Dorothy reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. I want to give you something. It's a letter James wrote to Richard after Richard graduated from medical school. I think you should read it. Tanya opened the envelope carefully. The letter was dated 35 years earlier, written in neat handwriting. Dear Richard, congratulations on your graduation. I'm so proud of you, though not surprised by your success. I always knew you had greatness in you even when you didn't know it yourself. As you begin your career, remember why you're doing this work. Not for money or prestige, but to serve. To heal. To make the world a little better than you found it. I helped you because I could, because you needed it, and because I believed in you. Now I ask that you do the same for others. When you see someone struggling, someone with potential but no opportunity, help them. Give them the chance I gave you. This is how we change the world. Not through grand gestures, but through small acts of kindness that ripple outward. One person helping another, who helps another, who helps another. An endless chain of compassion. You will do great things, Richard. I have no doubt. But the greatest thing you'll do is help others do great things too. With love and pride, James. Tanya read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This was the foundation of everything. This letter, written decades ago, had led to Richard helping her, which led to her helping Nicole and Amanda and dozens of others, which would lead to them helping hundreds more. Thank you for sharing this, Tanya whispered. James would have loved you, Dorothy said, patting Tanya's hand. You're exactly the kind of person he believed in. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep building that chain of kindness. On Bella's 7th birthday in July, they had a big party at a park pavilion. All their friends came. Denise and her kids, Nicole and her children, Amanda and Sophia, families from Second Chances, co-workers from the foundation. Richard, Grace and Thomas were there, of course. Even Dorothy came, charming everyone with her stories. Tanya watched Bella run around with other children, her laughter bright and free. This was the childhood Tanya had fought for. This security, this joy, this community of love. Richard approached, holding a small wrapped box. This is from Grace and me. We wanted to give it to you privately. Tanya opened it to find a key. What's this? The building where you live is being sold. The new owner plans to convert it to luxury condos. We bought your unit so you wouldn't have to worry about moving. It's yours. No rent, no mortgage. Fully paid. Tanya stared at the key. You bought my apartment? Consider it payment for all you've done for the foundation. For the thousands of lives you'll touch through your work. For being part of our family. Tanya hugged Richard tight, unable to speak. Grace joined them and they stood there together, a makeshift family bound by love rather than blood. We have one more thing to tell you, Grace said. The board voted yesterday. When Richard retires in 3 years, you'll become the foundation's executive director. Not as an interim. As the permanent leader. 3 years. Tanya said. I thought it would be 5. You're ready, Richard said simply. You've proven that. The board agrees unanimously. That night, after everyone had gone home and Bella was asleep, Tanya sat in her living room holding the key to her apartment. Her apartment. Hers completely, with no fear of eviction, no landlord to answer to, no rent to struggle to pay. She thought about the chain of events that led here. Her hitting rock bottom. Richard choosing to stop his car. Grace opening her heart. Thomas learning to trust. Her deciding to help others the way she'd been helped. Every choice had mattered. Every act of kindness had rippled outward. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hi, this is Amanda. I just wanted to let you know I applied to volunteer at the foundation. Patricia said they need people to help with outreach. I hope I get it. I want to start giving back. Tanya smiled and typed back. You'll get it. And you'll be wonderful at it. Proud of you. The chain continued. The ripples spread. The world became a little bit better, one person at a time. Tanya walked to Bella's room and stood in the doorway, watching her daughter sleep. Bella had her stuffed bear from that first night tucked under her arm. She looked peaceful, secure, loved. We made it, baby, Tanya whispered. We really made it. But more than that, they'd created a path for others to make it too. They'd taken their pain and transformed it into purpose. They'd taken the kindness they received and multiplied it. This was the happy ending Tanya had once thought impossible. But it wasn't really an ending at all. It was a beginning. A beginning of a life dedicated to service, to compassion, to lifting others up. She thought about James Warren's letter, about building chains of kindness that ripple through time. She was part of that chain now. Essential link connecting past generosity to future hope. Tanya walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, another person was sitting in the cold, wondering if they'd survive. Another mother was holding her child, terrified of tomorrow. Another family was one crisis away from losing everything. But now, because of the work she and Richard and so many others had done, there was help available. There was hope. There was a second chance waiting. Tanya pulled out her phone and opened her work email. There was a message from the emergency hotline they'd set up for families in crisis. A woman named Jennifer had called, desperate, with 2 children and nowhere to go. Without hesitation, Tanya typed a response to the intake coordinator. Get her contact information. I'll call her first thing in the morning. We'll find her a place in second chances. No one sleeps on the street tonight. She hit send and felt a deep sense of purpose settle over her. This was her calling. This was why she'd survived that terrible December night. Not just to save herself and Bella but to save others too. The next morning, Tanya called Jennifer. She heard the fear in the woman's voice, the exhaustion, the barely contained panic. She heard herself from a year ago. You're going to be okay, Tanya said with absolute certainty. I'm going to help you. We're going to help you. You and your children will be safe, warm, and fed. This is not the end of your story. It's just a difficult chapter. Trust me, I know. I've been exactly where you are. Really? Jennifer's voice broke with hope. Really? I'll tell you all about it when we meet. But for now, just know this. You're not alone anymore. You have a whole community ready to support you. We've got you. After the call, Tanya sat at her kitchen table with her morning coffee and opened her gratitude journal. She wrote about Jennifer, about the chance to help another family, about the beautiful symmetry of it all. Then she wrote, 1 year ago I had nothing. Today I have everything that matters. Not because I'm wealthy or powerful, but because I'm connected. Because I'm loved. Because I have purpose. Because I get to help others find their way out of the darkness I once knew. This is what it means to be truly rich. Not money in the bank but love in your heart. Not possessions but purpose. Not taking from the world but giving to it. Thank you, Richard, for stopping your car. Thank you, Grace, for opening your home. Thank you, Thomas, for opening your heart. Thank you, Bella, for giving me a reason to keep fighting. And thank you, James Warren, who I never met but whose kindness changed my life across decades. I will honor your legacy by building that chain of compassion until my last breath. The story isn't over. It's just beginning. Tanya closed the journal and looked at the clock. Time to wake Bella for school. Time to go to work and change more lives. Time to keep building, keep growing, keep spreading hope. She walked to Bella's room with a light heart and a grateful spirit. The sun was streaming through the windows, painting everything in warm, golden light. Outside, birds were singing. Inside, her daughter was safe and loved. This was the life she'd fought for. This was the future she'd built from nothing. And this was just the beginning of all the good that would come from one stranger's decision to stop his car on a cold December night and offer help to someone who desperately needed it. Kindness, hope, and love had led them here. And those same forces would carry them forward, creating ripples that would spread far beyond anything they could imagine, touching lives they'd never meet, in places they'd never go, for years they'd never see. The chain continued. The story went on. The light kept spreading. And somewhere in the city, another person in need was about to discover that they weren't alone. That help was coming. That their story wasn't over yet. Because that's what happens when kindness becomes a movement. Everyone wins. Everyone rises. Everyone gets a second chance. And the world becomes a little bit better, one family at a time.